Welcome to the show. Tonight, we're going to continue our special series we're calling Guns in America, A Day in the Life. This comes 2 weeks after the massive school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, with stricter gun laws, gun restrictions, and asking the question, should we be arming teachers? Yesterday, John Stossel tried to get a gun permit, but it was tough to get a gun permit. Imagine trying to spend 1 day in jail. If you have a gun license and you're planning to bring your gun to New York City, watch out because you could go to jail. Here's John Stossel.
A gun license? Plan to bring your gun to my hometown next time you fly in?
Pack all unloaded firearm and firearm parts in a locked, hard-sided container.
If you call the TSA, they will tell you, put the gun in a locked container and
Notify the airline during the ticket counter check-in process.
But even if you do this properly, New York authorities will still wreck your life.
I declared my gun, because I always do. I fly in and out all over the U.S. with it.
Patricia Jordan carries her gun for protection. She correctly followed all the TSA procedures when she flew from her home in Georgia to New York City.
It's in a TSA case. Everything's separate. It's locked.
She was traveling with 3 teenage girls and wanted her gun in her hotel room.
I know that if something happens, then I can protect myself.
I was glad that she had brought it just in case something did happen.
On their way home, Patricia did everything correctly again. At the airline counter, she again told the agent she wanted to check her gun. But this time she was told, wait.
The next thing I know, they're getting ready to arrest me.
For what exactly?
For having a gun. I thought I was going to pass out. I really did. I have my permit. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to right.
Of course, I started freaking out.
She sat there and begged the lady, please don't arrest my mom, please don't arrest my mom. She was like crying, begging her not to take me.
The police put Patricia in jail and told her, you've committed a felony.
The minimum was 3.5 to 7 years mandatory prison for this.
Another visitor, Avi Wolf, was jailed just for having a gun part, an empty magazine. There were no bullets. It's just something like this.
It was exactly like that. Instead of a plastic exterior, mine had a little bit of a different make to it, but it was exactly that. Somebody could have done more damage to an individual with a fork from McDonald's than with that.
Wolf, too, checked with the TSA beforehand. They told him, just declare it to TSA agents at security.
I'm telling them that. Just notification, I have a magazine here. It's empty. There's no bullets. There's no gunpowder. I called TSA before doing it, and this is what they told me to do, was to declare it. The next thing I know, they pulled me over to the side, and they're all like, do you know what you have in your bag? And I'm like, I know what I have in my bag. I told you what I have in my bag. Fast forward about an hour, it was four Port Authority police officers are there. The chief of LaGuardia Airport is there. They thought they found somebody trying to do 9/11 repeat.
For this?
Literally. For that. They asked me if I had a gun license. Of course, I had a gun license. I'm from Georgia. Everybody there's got a gun license. And they're like, well, sir, you're going to be getting arrested now. I'm like, oh, no.
The other prisoners couldn't believe why Avi was in jail.
One guy beat up his wife. This other guy is busted with a whole bunch of drugs. It's just like, so what did you do? Why are you here? It's like, I got caught at security with an empty magazine.
What'd they say?
Just laughed at it as a joke.
But it was no joke. Avi and Patricia were released after a day in jail, but they still faced that felony charge.
I could barely function. I had to get on anxiety medicine. I was throwing up every day.
Months later, New York allowed each to plead guilty to a lesser charge, public disorder. But it cost each $15,000 in legal fees. Why does New York City do this to people? They need to spend a day in jail?
We get them through the system as quick as we can.
District Attorney Jack Ryan handles New York Airport gun charges.
We're not going to apologize for enforcing our gun laws. We do enforce them fairly and humanely and as compassionately as we can.
Is it a fair system when it costs them $15,000, $17,000 and they spend a day in jail?
It's as fair as we can make it under all of those circumstances.
Even in Avi's case? It's an empty piece of plastic.
Whether the magazine is made out of plastic, Kevlar, or metal, I think is immaterial. It's a question of how many bullets it holds. That's why New York has banned them.
Isn't what's material is whether it held any bullets? It didn't. It was empty.
You can discuss that with the legislature. They didn't make it a crime only if there's bullets in it. They made it a crime.
Patricia had carefully separated her gun from her bullets.
The officer could not even find my bullets in my suitcase. I had to stop and go show her where they were. But yet they said that this was considered a loaded weapon in New York.
Under New York law, if they're together, they're loaded. And so we have prosecuted a number of those
They're
cases.
loaded even if they're not loaded?
If the weapon and the ammunition are together, they're loaded.
Most every week, New York jails someone who innocently travels with a gun, legally licensed in their state.
These are people who are trying to do everything right. They go on the TSA website. They follow the regulations to fly with their gun. They go on the airline website and they follow the regulations to properly fly with their gun.
And then New York jails them. You're a sadistic bully locking these people up. These aren't threats.
We know they're not threats after we check them out. We do not know who they are when we first talk to them.
Give me a break. Prosecutors have discretion. They could be reasonable with these poor people who had no idea that they'd violated New York's strange laws. But New York politicians don't want you to have a gun, so they will put you in jail to send everyone a message.
And that message is, don't bring guns on an airport. Well, coming up next, are you ready for 3D printed guns? No background checks, none of that. Plus the gun laws that kill when we return. Up front tonight, technology moves forward. We have 3D printers. Are you ready for 3D printed guns? Anyone can get those things. But is it legal? Once again, here's John Stossel.
Technology moves forward. Things like 3D printers are great. So are you ready for
3D printed guns?
Anyone can print it. No background checks. Mental illness not a factor. Virtually undetectable.
The media are alarmed.
This changes the safety of Americans forever. You shouldn't be able to make a gun in your own basement.
Massachusetts legislator David Linsky is one of many officials who want 3D printed guns banned. No one should be allowed to make these guns ever on their own.
That is absolutely correct. Look, we have enough guns in this country already.
But there's a bigger issue at stake, says Defense Distributing, the company that owns the blueprints for 3D printed guns.
I think it's incredibly important for companies like ours to stand up for rights that are being obviously infringed upon.
Not just gun rights, they say, but free speech.
The law can treat firearms like firearms. They can't treat the speech used to make them like firearms. We're fighting for the constitutional rights to share these files with the world.
Why do you want to? There's enough weapons out there.
We believe in free speech. You can't ban lawful U.S. citizens from sharing information with other lawful U.S. citizens, right? You can't ban the sharing of information.
This isn't about guns. This is about free speech on the internet.
The federal government has a responsibility to keep people from spreading this around the country.
Keep people from spreading sounds like censorship.
It's not censorship when the national security and public safety are at stake.
You can argue it's justified, but it's censorship.
The side of the federal building has been blown up.
Holy cow.
After the Oklahoma City bombing, the U.S. Congress asked the Department of Justice, can we make a law that bans putting bomb-making instruction on the internet? And DOJ said, no, you can't do that. You can't ban putting files on the internet. Nuclear bombs are a little bit different because it's classified information.
What's not classified is all over the web. Plenty of websites and books teach people how to make deadly things. Should the Anarchist Cookbook be banned?
No, there's no reason to ban books.
There's some deadly recipes in there.
The genie is out of the bottle a long, long time ago on the Anarchist Cookbook. But this is a very different thing. whereby all you have to do is download a file, press a button, and a printer gives you a gun.
I don't think that's an accurate description of the technology. There's not just point, click, shoot.
Bad people can go to Instagram and get an Insta gun.
People think that with a 3D printed gun, you press one button, click, and a gun pops out. It's actually a very complicated process. It might take a full day of printing. You have to treat the plastic with chemicals so that they're strong enough, and then odds are the gun's pretty crappy.
America does have a long tradition of people making their own guns.
If we had a ban on home manufacture of weapons during the time of the American Revolution, we would probably still be under the king's rule.
Well, it was a very different society. Now we have AR-15s and semi-automatic weapons.
Rights are enshrined in the Constitution for permanence. They're not put there for transitory, fleeting references. They're there for the long haul.
But the Constitution also says, provide for the common defense. Politicians call printable guns a windfall for terrorists.
A direct threat to our national security.
Terrorists have access to far more dangerous weapons than 3D printed guns. The notion that, ISIS is having a factory of 3D printers and making these stupid little plastic guns that can fire one shot at a time, it really strains credulity.
But couldn't 3D printed plastic guns sneak through airport security?
Bullets are made out of metal.
They'll just use plastic bullets.
You can buy plastic bullets or rubber bullets today in a store. They're not very effective.
6 years ago, when Blackman's client first posted the blueprints, the State Department forced them to pull the files.
We took our files down, but thousands of other places on the internet hosting them.
It's true. The legislator hadn't realized that.
Is that an active website right now?
Download now. Anybody can do it.
I understand that some people might think that the genie is out of the bottle, but let's put as much of that genie back into the bottle as we possibly can.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle. One of the reasons why these efforts to regulate the internet are kind of silly is you can't shut down information. If anything, banning the information creates interest, right? When you ban some people say, oh, I want to get that, and it makes you want to download even more.
For now, the information's out there, and politicians and TV anchors will try to scare you to death.
Tomorrow morning, the sun will be shining, the birds will be singing, and anyone will be able to legally download instructions to 3D print their own fully functional plastic gun.
That happened. The world's the same. Birds are still singing, the sun's still rising, and people are just fear-mongering.
There will be a new wave of gun violence.
We believe in free speech. This is an important principle, and the state can't take us down.
But the birds are chirping, the sun is shining, and tomorrow there'll be more 3D printed guns. So should these 3D printed guns be banned? Absolutely. Absolutely, they should be banned. And if there are laws that can help with this, then we're not violating Second Amendment rights. We're basically restricting. I mean, think about back when Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, and Dylan went to a gun show, and they bought the two guns. Chris Hansen will talk about those gun shows from back in 1999. From 23 years ago when we come back. Before we continue with our Guns in America special, let's bring you up to date on the Uvalde shooting. The Texas attorney Thomas J. Henry is representing the families of the 4 students. Take a look.
18 children killed, 2 teachers, and many others injured. A Texas attorney is now...
We're at the very beginning of this case.
19 children killed, 2 teachers, and many others injured. A Texas attorney is now advocating for 4 of those that were shot while in their 4th grade classroom. In a civil lawsuit filed Monday, Thomas J. Henry is asking for more than $1 million in damages from the gunman's estate. But the intended outcome goes beyond a dollar amount.
In this civil lawsuit, we're able to subpoena and obtain evidence about what happened by each of the government entities, from law enforcement to schools, to manufacturers, for instance, of the back door, to the gun manufacturer, to the process of acquiring and buying the gun and whether it was done properly, to gaming, to social media, the whole gambit.
And that could lead to pursuing more legal action against other parties, including law enforcement.
We know there's going to be an uphill battle.
Henry is also representing victims of another Texas shooting, Sutherland Springs, 2017. On Monday, the U.S. government filed an appeal to overturn the verdict awarded to the victims. That's after a U.S. federal district judge had ruled that the Air Force was partially responsible for the shooting because they failed to report felony convictions of the shooter. Henry believes both Sutherland and Uvalde point to a need for change and accountability.
When we look at the whole landscape of the Uvalde suit, other shootings, what government officials are doing and not doing, we need Uvalde to really hit home. We have to have policy changes, law changes.
Carissa Lemko, Fox 7 Austin News.
And we don't know when the trial date's going to happen, but we'll let you know what happens. Our special Guns in America, A Day in the Life, continues when we come back. If you just joined us, just tuned in, or landed on another planet, we're continuing our special about Guns in America, A Day in the Life. Let's go back to 1999, when the sounds of gunfire ended at Columbine High. Congress was trying to look into that legal loophole that allowed those two teenage boys to get those guns. Now remember, those two boys got those guns from those gun shows. So what happened? How did they get those guns from that gun show? Here's Chris Hansen.
The question is there still active investigation going on? You bet they're still on scene, and they will be for a while.
6 days after the massacre at Columbine High School, federal investigators are still searching for an answer to a disturbing question. How did two teenagers get their hands on lethal weapons, most of which should legally have been out of their reach? One was a Tech DC-9 semi-automatic assault pistol like this one, a version of which was banned by Congress in 1994. For years, it was a favorite of gangs and drug dealers. It's capable of firing up to 30 rounds before reloading. The pair also had a carbine rifle similar in style to this one, which can fire bullets as quickly as one can pull the trigger. Law enforcement sources now confirm they believe those weapons used by 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold were last purchased at a gun show in Denver within the last several months. Today, investigators interviewed an 18-year-old woman identified as a friend of one of the suspects in connection with the purchase. Critics say the fact that two teenagers ultimately came to possess weapons purchased at a gun show points to a serious loophole in federal gun control laws. In fact, law enforcement officials say that in some cases, gun shows can be virtually unregulated supermarkets where guns are bought and sold with no questions asked. James Johnson is an undersecretary of the Treasury Department, which oversees federal gun laws.
What is there currently in place to stop, for instance, a convicted felon from buying a deadly weapon from another private citizen at a gun show?
In terms of the protections that are in place at the gun shows to ensure that, or at least make it more difficult for convicted felons to get weapons at gun shows, those don't exist.
There were more than 4,000 gun shows in America last year, attended by millions of people, where hundreds of thousands of weapons changed hands. And while all sales at legitimate gun stores must be made by licensed dealers, not all sellers at gun shows are licensed. And federal authorities say those unlicensed sellers are not required to do background checks on gun purchasers that are mandated by the 1993 Brady Law.
If I buy a gun at a gun store, oftentimes there's a waiting period. What about at a gun show from an unlicensed dealer?
If I go to an unlicensed person and I ask for a gun and I have the money, I can get that gun right there, no questions asked. That's the state of the law right now.
That sounds like an awfully big loophole when you're trying to monitor the sale of weapons.
It's a loophole about which we at Treasury and at Justice and within the administration have a tremendous amount of concern.
And just who are these unlicensed sellers at gun shows? It could be collectors or hobbyists. And as this undercover video shot by NBC News shows, they often walk around with guns slung over their shoulders. Sometimes they have price tags on the weapons, an open advertisement to anyone interested.
How much do they go for? 4.5. Got it in the box, 3 clips, bayonet, maybe a couple hundred rounds of ammo.
The Treasury Department estimates that a quarter of sellers at gun shows are these unlicensed private citizens who often entice people by telling them there will be no background check and no waiting period.
We're talking about an atmosphere that is essentially unregulated.
Within that atmosphere, if you want to purchase a weapon and if you can't get it through any other lawful means, you could buy it, again, from a person who is not a licensed firearms dealer and simply pick up the weapon of your choice.
Unlicensed sellers pose another problem for law enforcement. Since there's no official record for those transactions, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has no paper trail if the weapon that changed hands ends up being used in a crime. Indeed, in the days after the shooting in Littleton, authorities tracing 2 shotguns also used in the rampage almost immediately had the names of a few of the owners from 30 years ago, but not the most recent owners from only months ago.
What you're dealing with from a tracing perspective at gun shows very often is essentially a black hole, where the gun is sold, but there's no record anywhere of who purchased the gun, where that gun went next.
In a February radio address, the president called for tighter regulations of gun shows.
America cannot allow its gun shows to become illegal arms bazaars, where lawbreakers shop side by side with the law-abiding.
At the president's direction, the Treasury Department and the Justice Department have come up with tighter restrictions for gun shows, designed to close the loophole in federal law. The recommendations include registering everyone who sells firearms at a gun show and requiring that all sales involve a licensed dealer. The National Association of Arms Shows Incorporated, which represents gun shows, sent a statement to Dateline expressing its sympathy and sadness to the families of the victims, but also pledging to work with the Congress and our industry to enhance public safety of our schools and our youth.
How do you answer critics who may say that this is merely another attempt by the federal government to intrude upon some people's Second Amendment rights?
We have a strong interest in making sure that those who do not have or should not have access to guns don't have access to guns.
Just yesterday, the American Shooting Sports Council, which represents the firearm industry, wrote a letter saying publicly it supports the concept of a background check and paper trail for those individuals purchasing firearms at gun shows. But the lack of a paper trail and the loopholes in laws governing gun shows has made it all the more difficult for federal agents in Littleton, Colorado, to determine how 2 teenagers got their hands on 4 deadly weapons.
President Clinton plans to announce his gun control proposals tomorrow. White House officials say he will call for tougher regulations on gun shows. He's also expected to call for mandatory child safety locks on all guns sold and a lifetime ban that would prevent violent juveniles from ever owning a gun.
And that legal loophole could still be open. We don't know of it yet. We don't know if that's still happening. If you walk into a gun show, you will see. Like, here's the thing I have to say: if you're going to go out to a gun show and you want to get a gun, ask hard questions like, "Are you licensed? If these people are not licensed, walk away. Get your gun from a gun store. If you were to go to Walmart or Academy, they sell those guns. They'll give you those guns. Or if you're going on eBay, which I'm going to right now to find guns, laser light handgun. You got all these guns, $15. Anybody can get these guns, and BB air pistols. How about Amazon? Can that happen too? Yes. Yes, you can get those guns. You can get those guns from Amazon on eBay. You buy them online. If you buy them online, they come through your door, you're gonna get yourself in a lot of trouble. That person who got that gun or bought that gun with that information is gonna be arrested. And thank goodness I don't buy guns online. Even if I did, but if you own a gun without a license, you're probably gonna get yourself in a lot of trouble. That's why some states and mandatory licenses are for ages to where you can't own a gun unless you're 21 years old, which is good. But there's some old phrases, and there are some gun PSAs. We'll look at those PSAs tomorrow on Give Me a Break Wednesday. But I want to show you a clip from Family Guy with its gun PSA.
Peter, some of the guys from the club are going hunting tomorrow. Well, count me in.
Hunting? I thought you were going to play hockey with Chris.
Well, you can bring him along.
Oh, no, it's too dangerous.
Lois, the National Gun Association is all about safety, especially when it comes to kids. Take a look at our new video.
Let's face it, your kids are going to get into your guns. That's a fact. Gun accidents can be avoided by introducing your children to guns as early as possible.
Hi, I'm Petey the Pistol. Say, do you ever get lonely?
Yes.
Me too. Hold me. If you squeeze me, I make bad people go away.
But wait a minute. I thought guns were bad. False. Guns are good. In fact, did you know that Jesus and Moses used guns to conquer the Romans? So remember, guns don't kill people. Dangerous minorities do. Warning, guns are extremely dangerous. Do not purchase, own, clean, operate, or be near guns at any time.
And like the old saying, guns don't kill people. Something kills people. Oh, how about guns don't kill people? The government does.
Well, what about practicing for the tournament after school?
No, I'd have to come here to get you and then go back across town to the range. That could eat up 10 minutes.
What about shooting after dinner?
No, you don't want to exercise on a full stomach.
Well, maybe I could take the guns to school and we could squeeze off a few rounds between classes.
You shouldn't take guns to school with you. They're dangerous.
Exactly.
What?
Oh, brother. Bobby, go on and clean the guns. I'll be in there in a minute.
What's this about guns being dangerous?
Well, that's right. They kill people.
Guns don't kill people. The government does.
Oh, handguns have been
They've
around
been around
for
since
years.
1000
They were
AD.
dangerous. I just think someone would have said something.
Most deaths in the home are from guns and gun accessories.
Let me ask you this. A guy breaks into your house, but you don't have a gun. How are you going to shoot him?
Dale, that's right out of the NRA magazine August issue.
I tell you what, man, that dang old NRA with our rights, man, the insurance you get with dismemberment night like that, you get like $20,000 just for your arm blows off, man.
I can't believe you guys. Dale, the NRA is a Washington, D.C. based organization. Are you telling me you support Washington, D.C.?
That's a thinker.
Exactly. Well, we could spend this other half talking about kids and guns, but look at the time. We're out of time. But on Give Me a Break Wednesday, I'll look into kids and guns, especially from Eddie Eagle, and how to teach your kids about gun safety, and Diane Sawyer with a hidden camera experiment that you don't want to miss. So, our series, Guns in America, A Day in the Life, continues all this week on this broadcast with a look at gun laws. And mind you, we're going to look at some gun laws, but we're going to have that for you on Thursday. If we can't do it on Thursday, we're going to have that for you on Friday, while still updating you on the Uvalde school shooting, giving you the very latest as this goes along. So, to repeat, tomorrow, which is today on this broadcast, a look into kids and guns with Eddie Eagle, how to teach your kids about gun safety, and a hidden camera experiment from Diane Sawyer. So parents, your kid, I want your kids to watch this episode, tomorrow's episode, because they could help. And I could be the one. And I'll update people on the newsletter as well. GiveMeABreak.substack.com. If you want to be a short article about Army teachers, you can visit it. You can also visit the newsletter at GiveMeABreak.substack.com. That's all of this edition of Give Me a Break Tuesday going to Wednesday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Wednesday with our continuing special, Guns in America, A Day in the Life. For all of us here at Give Me a Break and YouTube, good night.